Okay, so back to this. Since we last saw it, I've changed the colors a little bit just to make it look a little bit more interesting. Just from looking at this and comparing it to the original, and again, I'm not trying to recreate this original perfectly, but just for, there's just little things that I want to adjust. Like, for example, where I put this detail here, it sort of lengthened this a little too much, I think, compared to this picture. As you can see, this part was where I added those things. So I think just the proportions have been kicked off a little further than I'd like. So if you remember, I added in 2 more rows. Was it 2? Yeah, I think it was 2 more rows. I might actually take 3 off, is what I'm thinking. So this is kind of what happens when you design on the fly. I'm not a designer, and I just sort of model things the way they feel good to me. So I'm just going to do that, and then we'll also talk about the fact that because I scaled this up on 2 axes just to fatten it up without making it longer, the side effect of that is that these are no longer square. They're kind of rectangular, and I really would like to keep them at least as pretty square. So we'll go in and fix that as well. Okay, so let's start by eliminating 3 of these rows of whatever this grip texture, whatever you want to call it. So I'm going to go in my side view here, and I'm in wireframe. So what I'll do, I want to get rid of 3 of them. So I'm in polygon mode. Let's see what we get there. Okay, now I need to increase my selection to capture that. Let's see on the other side, same thing. So if I hit grow and shrink, there we go. So it did 1 grow and then 1 shrink, and it got the whole thing as I wanted it. And if we delete it, just look around, I think we're good. Now, again here, we've left this thin line of polygons here, and the same thing on the other side. So if we just merge it together like this, what's going to happen is that we're going to get a sort of a doubly wide spacing there. So we have to get rid of one of them. So if I click this and then shift click the next one and hit delete, that should get rid of that. Okay, now we can just select all of this, W for the move tool, and we're just going to move this back. And let me get this where I can see it. Something like that. Yeah, it's good enough. Okay, so now we can just drag a selection around there. Go in the weld settings, and let's look at, I don't remember where it was, but just looking at the numbers, I think this should be good. And let's go to a smooth. Yep, so that got welded just fine. Okay, so then the next thing is to fix the proportions of these details here. So again, I'm going to go in the side view here. I'm going to select all of those and maybe deselect this. Oops. Alt and drag to deselect, and maybe deselect this line as well. And get the scale tool. Just scale these on the X till they're more or less square. Doesn't have to be perfect, just needs to look better. Okay, so that's why I deleted 3 rows, because I knew I was gonna widen these back out. So, and then maybe move this back a little bit. And actually what we can do is just take this whole thing. Let me do this in vertex. It's a lot easier. So let's just move this back. And I think that looks better to me. Okay, so these are more square now. I think that looks a little bit more interesting. And so we need to do the same back here. Oh, and one thing we forgot to do before was just support this little detail here. This little bump out here, we never did support it. So I'm going to put a support edge there and there. And then double click, control double click, and let's just chamfer this. And for this chamfer, I'll probably just use one segment a piece. And just make them nice and small. There we go. So now we have that little bit of detail there. Okay, so all this little detail just makes it more interesting. So now these back here, we need to square these out as well. So let's select all of them, move them here, and scale them out. Now this edge loop here might just be in the way, so right now I'm just gonna control backspace to delete that edge loop, then go back into vertex and scale these out some more till it's more or less square. Don't worry about getting it perfect, just get it so it looks more square, and that does, so that is good. Okay, so I think that looks better. Next thing I want to do is this part. Let's go to element, this part right here. If we look at this, see there's some angle here, and I know I said yesterday, the last video, that I wasn't gonna try to copy that, but it's been bugging me, so I am gonna fix it a little bit, and it's a pretty quick, easy fix anyway, so might as well just do it. Because right now the way we have them, they're perfectly straight. Let's add some of that angle to them. So let's go into element, and just to make things easy, I'm going to detach this to its own object, and then select it and isolate it. So now we are here. Then let me just look at the image again here. So narrow this side. So I'm going to go to vertex, and I'm going to select these vertices, get my scale tool, make these narrow here, then select the ones on the opposite side and make them wider. Okay, so how far you want to go with this is up to you. And then obviously, because this is on a circle here and we're widening, I'm going to deselect those middle ones, and then just lower, get my move tool, just push these down a little bit so they still fall in line with the circle. Okay, so something like that. Maybe just to add some curve at the ends of them, get these and curve them like that, and then take these three and curve them that way. Okay, let's see what that gives us. Put a Turbosmooth modifier, isoline display, 2 iterations. Okay, so I think that it's more visually interesting than just having them straight across, I think. So I like what that's looking like. Okay, so next thing we want to do, and how many did we have here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we have a total of 9 of them. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just deselect the ones I want to keep, which is that. So I go to the half of the next segment and on each side, so half this way, and delete it. Get out of the sub-object mode here, get my rotate tool, hold down shift, and then rotate by 40 degrees, and we're going to do 8 copies, just like that. And you can see now we have that nice sort of angular thing going there. Then I'm going to go into editable poly. Oh, you know what? Let's undo that. I want to take off the Turbosmooth before you do it, otherwise it's going to duplicate all of them with their own Turbosmooth, which is going to make it a pain to combine them. So again, shift and rotate by 40 degrees, and I have my angle snap on, which makes it easier to snap to 40. And I totally forgot to make 8 copies. Let's try that again. Shift and 40, and we want 8 copies. And there we go. Okay, so select the first one, go to the attached list, and all these are object and a number, so I'm just going to select them all and hit attach. Go to vertex mode, select these and do a weld at, let's try point 0.1. Got to zoom in real close, because if you're too high, oops, what it was before, you'll see that at 0.394 these are getting welded, but as soon as I start to go down, things start to come apart. So you want to, let's go 0.05, and I think that'll probably be good. So you got to just be very careful with that. Let's put on another Turbosmooth just to see. And it looks like everything is merged, and you can see now that, to me, that looks a lot more interesting than it was before. Okay, so I'm gonna get rid of that Turbosmooth, and I'm gonna end isolate, and then let's go into element mode, select this. And the reason I do this from element mode is because the original object that I pulled this off of had its pivot point way back here. It also has its pivot point way back there, and I can center the pivot, but it's just as easy to go into element mode. And now when I select the polygons, you see my pivot is at the center, so that if I want to scale this, it scales from the correct location. I'm going to scale this down just a hair. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is just get out of there and go to edit poly. I'm going to put an FFD 2x2, which is a lattice, and what this does is just a deformer. So go to control points, open it up, go to control points, and I'm going to select the 4 in the back, and I'm going to then scale them up, and you'll see what's happening. I'm getting this nice sort of, if I make it extreme here, you can see that you get a nice flaring out there. So we want to just, again, just so it's not so uniform and even, I'm going to do that, and then get out of control points. And then what we can do is put another edit poly over the top. So that way, you know, if we decide we don't like that FFD, we can always turn it off. So you can see I can turn it on and off. That's the non-destructive workflow of the modifier system in 3D Studio Max. And then I can come back here to element and maybe turn, you know, scale it down a little bit more. So we have something like that, and maybe even scale it a little bit this way, like that. Yeah, so I definitely like the way this looks a little bit better, much more visually interesting. Okay, so as you've noticed that I tend to just adjust things the way that they look good, without being too concerned with trying to match it up to the perfect, to match this light up perfect here. Okay, make it your own. I mean, unless there's a very specific reason. I mean, if you're working on a production, then you gotta go with, you know, whatever the art director tells you. But if this is your own project, you make it your own. Okay, so I'm going to save my work so I don't crash. Okay, so I think it looks pretty good. Now, these little bump outs here are actually, if we look at this image, they actually sort of come out and that they connect into the little holder thing down here like this. So let's put that in. It's kind of hard to find this image, but let's do that. So I'm going to isolate this, and then we have to remember that it's going to connect to the rail on this side here. Now actually, before I do that, I want to recombine. That's and isolate. There we go. We need to recombine this piece here into here. So I'm going to select this, and let's make sure we don't have a Turbosmooth on here. We don't. So select this, go to Edit Poly. Where's Attach? Activate Attach, and then click on this and deactivate Attach. Now it's all part of the same object. So this is what it looks like when it's smoothed out. I think that looks pretty good. Okay, so let's isolate, and then we can adjust these. So now what we need to do is just figure out how many, so it sort of comes out. So if this is like the I guess the 9 o'clock position, it's just a little down here. So let's select. Oh, and then what we have to do as well, before I forget, let's get rid of these bevels that we did here, just because they're going to complicate things. So select those two, Control Backspace, and select these two, and Control Backspace. We'll rebevel later. So let's go to Polygon and decide where we want. So no. So is that? Yeah, I think that's the split line is right there, I believe. That looks about right. So I want to just select the same amount on either side of the center line. And maybe, yeah, I think that should be good. Notice I'm just doing one of them. Once I'm done with this one, I'm gonna just delete this one and then duplicate this geometry and slide it over and weld it in here. So you're not having to do the same work twice. Just do it once. So hold on Shift and no, sorry, undo that. We will just do an extrude. Get the extrude tool and just extrude this out like that. Doesn't matter how much. We're going to adjust in a sec. Okay, so we come out and then we sort of flare outward, as you can see, and then we come to this little box. Okay, so back here. So what we want then is to get our scale tool and scale this way. And maybe not so much. Something like that. And edge. We're going to ring this. I'll go ring. We're going to do a connect, which is going to cut in one. And select both of these, top and bottom. And again, now if you've selected two edges and you activate your scale tool and the scale tool is way down here and it's not like centered between them, that means we just have to adjust the use pivot, where the pivot point is. So click on here, hold it down, and we're going to get this one here, which is use selection center. It's by default at use pivot center or something like that, and this one is use selection center. You'll see now that my pivot point is centered between them, so that now I can scale and maybe get my move tool and just move forward a little bit. Oops. Let's get the move forward. Okay, so we're just creating that flare out there. Okay, and I'm just going to double click the edge loop and let's do a chamfer. Get the box here. And we're just going to make a pretty big chamfer, maybe 2 segments. Okay, that's just going to curve this out a little bit nicer. Okay, and then we want this sort of boxy section here. So again, polygon, and it should still have saved your last selection. And let me see here. Yeah, okay. So again, we're just gonna do an extrude. Oh, it did. I clicked on the settings and it just repeated the last extrude that I did, which is fine. So I guess I can get out of the extrude tool, get my scale tool, and scale this flat. And the other way you can flatten things out, if I undo this, is if you look at here, I think you can, yeah, if you click make planar, you can do it. If you want to snap to a specific axis, so if I hit X, it's on the X axis. If I do Y, it'll flatten this way. And if I do Z, it'll flatten that way. So either way, make planar works. It just flattened them out and made them planar. So we want this to be pretty square, so we're going to, what do we need to make it longer? Yeah, something like that. I'd say that's good enough. Okay, so obviously when you smooth it, it just melts and looks terrible, so we need to do our chamfers. So I'm not going to put these holes in here because, again, this is not going to be seen, and it'd be a waste of geometry, so I'm just going to leave it as is. Now this actually may be a little bit longer in here, but I don't care. I'm not going to spend too much time trying to figure that out because it's really not important. So we're just going to leave things as is. If I need to lengthen it later, I can always do that. All right, so I'm going to double click and double click. So that's selected all the way around, and control double click here, control double click there. That's selected that. I'm not going to chamfer this one because I want this to be a smooth transition. Hopefully it's going to work. That one, double click here, and I'm holding down control, double click, click, double click, and control double click. Okay, so let us then, you want to make sure you get this one and this one because we want those edges to be pretty sharp. Now you may get weird artifacting in here just because this isn't selected around here, so I might just add that in so that the shape gets held a little bit better. So let's go into chamfer, and we want to let's make this smaller. Now unfortunately, when you have intersections of multiple, you see how this is getting bad here, so I might just, because this is what, when we have one segment you get triangles here. I don't think they have fixed that yet. So I don't think there is, yeah, no, they haven't fixed that yet. So, I mean, you can either, I like to use 2 segments and things like this, which means that I'm going to have to go in and fix these types of things here. Is it easier to just go one and then add in that second segment later? Maybe. This is one of the things that I don't like about 3D Studio Max is the way that it chamfers in situations like this. Is it gives you really bad geometry. I think Maya bevels work a lot better than this, because this is just horrible right in here. So I'm trying to think here how I want to do this. Do I want to just... Well, let's do an experiment. So let's see. Are we happy with the width of the chamfer? Let's make it a little bit smaller. See, and in these corners we get this, which there's no need for this. All it had to do was get rid of this edge here, and we'd had a quad there. So this is another reason why I want to do one of these and then duplicate it over to this side, so that I'm not having to do this cleanup more than once. All right, let's go with this. And then let's go in and just clean up stuff. So select that and control backspace. Select that. Actually, you can just use backspace. Backspace there. So let's zoom in right here. Yep. Backspace on that guy. Max also has an annoying quirk where when I have something selected, my camera will rotate around it. So once I delete it and now I have nothing selected, you'll see that my camera rotation pivot just switches to the entire object. So it rotates around whatever's selected. Right now the flashlight itself is selected, so it's going to rotate around that. If I select this edge here, you'll see that now I'm rotating around this edge. But as soon as I deselect it, it goes all over the place. That's very annoying, but it's one of those things you got to get used to if you're going to use the software. Okay, so let's clean this up in here. Let me see how I want to do this. Maybe if I cut across from here to here and then cut across from here to here. And then, oof, this is really bad. Let me see if I cut here to here to here, 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 and then delete these edges there. That is just ugly geometry. Let's delete these. So now we can get rid of these. Let's go to vertex and target weld and click and click, click and click. That is more or less. Let's move this one back this way. Let's move this one down this way. So let's clean that up. Okay, pain in the butt. I really shouldn't have to do this, but that is how it goes. So let's just start by sliding this one this way, slide this one this way, and then get our cut tool here, 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 here. And then cut across to here and cut across to there. And then let's go into edge mode. Shortcut is 2. Get rid of those and then go to vertex mode. Shortcut is 1 and target weld there to there and there to there. Okay. So that's those two. We need to do the 2 on the bottom. If it'll zoom out here, there we go. And again, because I don't have any, well, I have something selected way up there. Let's just select one of these. There we go. And if we hit Z or Z, you can zoom right in on it. Get the move tool. I'm going to move this back to here. Move this back here. Let's see, could I just move this one back here and this one up here? Let's try to do this a different way here. Cut across to here, cut across to here, and then get your edges and delete these 4. That works about the same. It's a little faster, but you get this flat point here, so now you have to just make sure you pull that out and try to get it to line up. So either way will work. It gets you to the same result. That one was just a little bit faster. But okay, select those, hit Z, Z, and go that way. Go that way. And this way. And this way. Okay. Cut across here. And then select that middle one and pull it out and line it up. Don't worry about being perfect. Okay, so that's those cleaned up. Let's see what they smooth out like, and that's pretty good. Now we missed these right here. So let's go in there and see what we can do about those. So this, we want to get our cut tool and cut from here to here. And then go into edge mode. I'm just going to control backspace those two edges. And actually, I'm going to control backspace this one. And then I'm going to go into vertex, and I'm going to target weld these two here. And maybe move this back. And then, actually, instead of target weld, I'm just going to do a weld on these two and just increase that threshold till they merge. Okay, same thing again this side. Let's cut here to here. Then we can go into edge mode and delete this and this, and then these two. Since weld, we set that large value, they should weld just by hitting the button, and those two. And you can pull this upwards so that it rounds out your chamfer, something like that. So we have that. Okay. And this, it annoys me every time I have to do this because bevels, their chamfers should be written a little bit better than this to be able to give you better geometry if you add multiple segments. So let's cut from here to here, and then edge mode, delete these. And then merge or weld. You'll have to excuse my terminology mixing between my terminology and Mac's terminology. And let's then just pull this down just a little bit. Other side. And let's cut across here. And then let's go to edge mode, get these four, remove them. I suppose you could have just welded them without removing them, but oops. There, move tool, pull this down just a little bit. All right. And then just as sort of a support edge thing, I'm going to select one of these. I'm going to go ring. Go into connect, set it to 2, and then increase your pinch just to spread those out. And messed it up. So ring. So these can be done on the fly. You'll see that if I add this edge here and then ring that, you'll see that you can add and remove stuff from the selection on the fly. So if I click on here and do ring, it'll do, and then you apply it. Now it's been committed. Okay, so there we go. That'll work for me, and then that's good enough. Okay, so next thing is just to duplicate this over to the other side. And what we're going to do first is go into polygon here, select that, and grow our selection all the way down to the bevels, and the chamfers. We want to include those chamfers when we delete them. Then we do the same thing here. Select one, shift select the next one, and then grow your selection all the way. Now this one, because it's an odd shape, we're going to get this happening here. Let's just keep growing till it goes where we want, and then just deselect, wrong button, alt and drag to deselect we might want to do this in the side view. So Alt and drag to deselect that and deselect that. And then check it. Looks good. Hold down Shift and drag it over. Clone to element. And just slot it in there. Get it close enough, which I think this is. Maybe a little bit, tiny bit to the right. There we go. Now we're almost spot on. Okay, vertex. Zoom out. Select this. Let's get a little bit closer. There we go. Then we're going to do a weld. Now because that number is really high, we get this. So I'm going to zero that out. And we're going to do a 0.01. And I think that should do it. And you smooth it. And if you got a nice smooth transition, then it welded. If not, it didn't. And the other way to check is go to element, click off, and if it selects the whole thing, then they're connected. If it doesn't, it means they're not welded. So looks like we're good. Okay. Now we may have to adjust the spacing of these because the whole thing connects to these rails here, so we might have to space this in a way that makes sense later, and we'll do that when we get there. So as you can see, there's different kinds of mounting things here of how they attach. These are sort of quick detach mounts and different ways that they attach these lights to the gun, like this. What I think the one that I'm going to go with is the one that generally comes with the light, which is, let me see if I can find it here, which is this one right here. And I had an image of the underside of it. Let me see if I can find it. So that one. Of course, now I can't find it. There's another image of it there. So this one I like it because it's simple. And we can model it pretty quick. Of course, now I can't find it. Anyway, that's fine. So the underside of these things are generally something like this. They sort of clamp to the rails here. So let me isolate my rail here. So you can see, if you look at this angle here, things sort of clamp around on either side of this, and then they hold securely because they get tightened on with some kind of screw or some kind of locking mechanism. So we're going to base ours off of that. So again, if we just look at some reference here, so something like, yeah, I think this is the one that we're going to be doing here. See, what is this? So that's another view. So basically this nut here just tightens these things and pulls them closer so that they clamp around that rail. So the width of this, we have a screw here and a screw here. Now again, just to keep things simple, this is going to be right up against the gun. Chances are you're not even going to see it. So we don't want to go too crazy with what's going on here. So what I might do, let's see, let's go to view more. See if we can get more images. And if you notice, this nut here it's kind of got the same detailing as this stuff here. Now, this is where you got to ask yourself, is it worth it? because we've already used it here, and then I added some more up here. To add more here, and these would probably have to be smaller than what we used up here, because that nut is really small, so we're not going to be able to use ones this big. So we got to make them smaller, and if we make them smaller, we're going to have more of them. So is it worth the polygons? I would say no. I would say it's not worth modeling that in. I would say that's something that you'd probably want to put in with textures. Honestly, you probably could have put this in with textures here, but because I went bigger with it, I think it looks better modeled. If I'd gone really small, I would have done it with textures, but for this, I think it looks fine. For that nut, I don't think, in fact, I know I'm not going to do that with modeling. I'm just going to do it with textures. And if we look at the rest of the gun here, I have the same sort of thing here, and here I have a lot of them. And honestly, this may have been overkill. Here I got some there, and then on this knob here, I have sort of grip texture here as well, and that's all modeled in. So I have, I've wasted quite a few polygons already. Honestly, those things did not need to be modeled. I may just generate normal maps off of them and call it good, and then just put a flat cylinder around there, and then just use the normal map to pull those details out. And then I can switch it out for sort of close-up shots. If we have any close-up shots, I can always switch it out. In fact, I think I have another. Yep, I have another one here. So there's a lot of waste, I guess you could call it. So let's keep it to a minimum on this flashlight. Okay. So what we got is, where is it? There you are. The base seems pretty simple. You can see it comes down into those, and then we have pretty simple sort of square-ish shape. And let's go back to that. Oh, actually, you know what? This image right here is kind of nice. So we can kind of see what's going on there. Okay, let's go back here. And we want to get the underside here. So those two parts. So if you remember, did I get rid of that image? Yeah, I probably did. There were two holes in the so there were two holes in these here and here, and those two holes basically screw into these screws here. So I guess we can start by making the screws themselves. So let's go ahead and make those really fast. So here we want a cylinder right there. And what do we want here? We don't need all these height segments, so I'm going to just right click on the arrows. It's going to get rid of those. We don't need 18 sides. Let's go down to say 12. This is going to be really small. We don't need all that extra detail. Okay, and these screws are basically a circle with a, what is that, hexagon? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. A circle with a hexagon in there. So given that we're doing a hexagon, we want this to be a multiple of 12, which it is. I'm sorry, a multiple of 6, which it is. I think this should be good, and I don't want to go any crazier than that. Let's apply an edit poly modifier, and let's go to polygon. No, let's go to, actually, let's delete this top polygon and the bottom one, and then we go to border, select this, get our scale tool, hold down shift, scale it in. Okay, so what that's, where's my top view here? There it is. Zoom in there. Okay, what that's done is it just extruded while scaling. So then let's go to vertex, and I want to select every other, with control, and we're going to scale these until they flatten out more or less. Again, don't worry about getting it super perfect, doesn't matter. So border, and then you can decide just how. So there's a decent sort of thickness. to that. So, you know, something like that. Call that good. Maybe bring it in a little bit. Get our move tool and extrude down. Maybe not so far. And actually we don't need this to be so tall, so we can bring this up like this. Select this one, get our scale tool, hold on shift, scale that in while also moving it down a little bit. And then again, hold on shift, scale this in. Oops. And then I'm going to convert this selection to vertices. So what I do here is control and click on a vertex right here, and it's going to convert those to vertices. I'm going to click on the settings for weld, and if we have a big enough number in there, we're going to weld them down to a single point and hit OK. Okay, now we have a bunch of triangles in here, so something that I like to do, which way is, yep, yeah. So something I like to do is just delete every other, missed one. Every other vertex, which will technically make these quads in here. They're not the nicest quads. They're very triangular, so we could even select this, get our scale tool, and scale these up just a little bit. Okay. So now let's go in edge mode, select this. We're going to do a chamfer. This one is going to be pretty big, not that big. Maybe 2 or 3 segments. Maybe just make it a little smaller. And then this one, we're going to chamfer not only this way, but we need to chamfer though the hard edges, because the inside is a hexagon, so we need to make sure we get that. And oh, missed one. Okay, I think I got them all, and then maybe I'll just add this in here as well. Chamfer, and we're going to use one segment, and we're going to use a very small chamfer and hit OK. Alright, now I don't know if this will smooth alright. Let's put a Turbosmooth on here just to look at it. Turn on isoline, turn on. Yeah, that's fine. It's good enough. Okay, so that gives us those. Now, I probably will never smooth those, but I just want to make sure that they do smooth if I ever, for some reason, need to get real close up on that light. I like to model to make sure that things smooth out, even if they probably not going to be smooth. Okay, so I'm going to go on the edge here. Let's just seal this off here. So I'll do one extrusion in there, and then one, which I will then control click on vertex, and then do a weld just to combine them down to one. And same as before, I'm going to go to edge mode, select every other one, make sure I didn't select anything on the top, control backspace, double click here, let's chamfer, let's go 2 segments this time, and I don't know, something like that. Okay, so now it's just a nut, and turn off the I'm going to delete the Turbosmooth now that I know that things work. And that is a total of 174 faces or polygons. Very light. One thing that we can do, if I go to element and click on the entire thing, a smoothing group. So basically, if you look at it, when I deselect it, you can see some of the edges here. So what I like to do is just soften everything up. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to clear all. Oh wait, select that. You see that 1 and 2 are missing. If I clear all, they come back, and then I'm just going to click 1 to put everything on one smoothing group. So that softens the normals on the entire object. It makes it almost feel like it's been smoothed, even though it hasn't. So that's a good way to to make something look like it's been smoothed without having to actually get in there and smooth it. And this will hold up to some medium to long range on camera before you have to smooth it if you get closer. So again, I'm going to come here, the hierarchy tab, effect pivot only. Because I move things up, my pivot point is way down here. I want to just snap it to the bottom here. So what I'm going to do then is hit S to turn on my snaps. And again, if you right click on this 3 here, make sure that vertex is turned on. Get my move tool, and I'm just going to snap that pivot point there, and then turn off effect pivot only, and turn off my snaps. So let's move this to where we want it, and that is over here somewhere. And obviously we're a little too big, so let's scale. Okay, so I'm just gonna raise this up above there, and then hold down Shift, move this one over here. We're gonna do a copy. Now I could have done an instance, but this entire model here of the whole gun is going to be animated in Maya. So instances probably would not, when I tend to export my stuff with OBJ if I'm just doing models, and I don't think OBJ likes instances, so I might lose my instances. So I just make everything a copy unless I'm just working in Max. Okay, and then I'm just gonna rotate this a random amount and rotate the other one a random amount, just so that they're not perfectly straight. You want them to look like they were torqued on there. So I tend to do that. Okay, so that's the screws. Save our work, and I'm going to increment my save just by hitting the plus sign, and it will increment the save. Okay, so then we have an area, sort of recessed area where the screws sit, and then there's an angle here, and then there's this raised up section. So let's go ahead and start to do that. Now, judging by the spacing between these two compared to the spacing, well, I don't know. I was thinking that it looks a little wide, but looking at this, maybe not. Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe it does. All right, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this, get my move tool, and just slide it back, just to line this up with a rail. And I don't know if that's even a thing. Maybe not. I don't know. All right, you know what? Let's go with it. Let's go with it like this for right now, and see what happens. Okay, let's make a plane. So I'm just going to draw a quick plane here. I'm going to zero it out in the length and width, so that it's just a 1x1 plane. Move this up. It's very easy to select something else. 3 Studio Max has this thing where if you click and hold and drag, it moves the object that you click on. Whereas in Maya, you have to click it once to select it and then click again to move it. In 3D Studio Max, it's very easy to just accidentally click on something and start moving that. Kind of annoying, but you learn to deal with it. Okay. So this is going to be the beginning of that recessed area. So it's just a square shape. Oops. Something like that. Let's affect this. I'm just going to convert that to poly. I don't think I'll be back to try to adjust it later. So I'm just going to, I'm going to go to about the halfway point, and we'll figure out what that halfway line is later. And in case you haven't figured it out, this is not stuff that I have pre-modeled that I'm now remodeling for you. This is all on the fly here, so don't be surprised. I'm going to mess up stuff. It's okay, because I haven't pre-done this. And so just bear that in mind. Turns the pressure on, It's alright. I can handle it. So I'm just defining that lower area, maybe a little wider, and then I'm going to bump out. So I'll give a move tool, maybe slide this over, cut another swift loop in here, and it sort of curves around that screw. So let's think about that as well. So if I take this and just run it around here, and then let's move this up a little bit here. Let's swift loop this here. So again, that rounded shape. So I could probably bring this back here. Didn't really need to do that. Okay. So we're getting that rounded shape, which then, so let's go ahead and bump this out. So polygon, just select these and do an extrude. Probably a little tall, so we'll just slide it back down here. And we're going to delete these because those are at the center line. And for right now, we're going to delete this. Okay. And then this comes down here, then angles this way. So we're going to give this, let's go into edge mode. Now does this, let's see. Yep, that goes all the way to this edge here. So I'm going to just extrude this back here. Then I'm going to go to polygon. Let's delete. Let's delete this guy and do an extrude again, or just yes, do an extrude again. And if we want to snap this into position, I might hit S and just snap this here, and then delete this inner. Turn off S, delete this inner polygon here, vertex, select these two and weld, select these two and weld. Okay, maybe we bring this closer. Double click this one, maybe bring that one closer. And go to polygon, and bring this one closer. Okay, so we'll do it like that. Maybe I can grab this, let's move it this way. And then swift loop here and scale those flat. Something like that. Then select this, just move it back a little bit. Let's continue that curve. Okay. Maybe if we select this and start that curve a little earlier. Okay. So we have that now. And it looks like, yep, it looks like this sort of drops down in here. And then this is at an angle because it angles that way. Okay. Let's go to vertex. And just move this like this. So we have this big circle in there. We have this part here that clamps around our rail. Looks like there's an angle to this side too, which starts. So if we, it's kind of hard to. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna isolate a couple things here. This, and our two screws. Let's isolate that. Save. Okay. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna delete these faces for right now. And select this and this. And this is going to come down at an angle. And I just want to snap this so that it's at the same level as that. Then I can bridge between these two, bridge. Okay. Maybe take this one. Just move it forward a little bit. Okay, and then these two will go down. So because this has to clamp over there, what I might do is just like this and move it. Okay. So now, if I want to put in this circular section, what I'm going to do is just mirror over the other half of this, because it's always easier to make a circle if you're not trying to do it in half. So I'm going to take my pivot point here, and again go in here, go effect pivot only, hit S to turn on your snaps. I want to snap it to this line here and turn that off. And then I'm going to put a symmetry modifier. And I want to do it on the y-axis and flip it. So now it's connected those. And then I want to put an edit poly over the top. So now it's a good time to check. Do I feel like the length of this is really wide here? And I kind of do. So what I'm going to do is actually delete that edit poly. I'm going to take my, there's two ways I could do this. I could come down here and bring this back this way, and then get my pivot point, effect pivot only, turn on my snapping and snap it there. And then in my mirror, what I want to do is, let's see, is it the y-axis? I'm going to take my mirror and just snap it to that same line. See how that feels. I think that feels better. Okay, so that means that if I now come here, turn off my snaps and move this here, that means I got to slide this whole thing over, because it just felt a little wide to me. So vertex, select all those and slide this over until it's right about there, which means now that this edge loop is not centered, so just move it over. Okay. Oh, wrong one. Let's go back to this object here, and we're going to put an edit poly over the top. So we want to cut our circle in there. I mean, it's pretty big. It takes up quite a bit of this. So, oops, wrong one. Edit poly. Okay. So now anything we do at this level, if we go back, we're going to lose it. So we have to stay above the symmetry level. Okay, so polygon. If I select all of this and do an inset, okay, so what that does is just basically extrude it inwards. And now if I want to select all these edge loops around here just so I can see I've got 12 edges, which means that I need to put a 12-sided cylinder there to trace around to make a circle. There's a plugin called Circularize, if you've heard of that. Unfortunately, I don't have it here. So I'm gonna show you sort of the brute force way to do this. And actually what I might do is actually add more in here, because this span here is really wide and there's nothing going on in there. So I might just select this and ring this and then connect. Let's see how many edges that is now. Oops. So up to 16 now. I think that should be okay. So polygon, I'm going to delete those in there. Okay, then I'm going to go here, and can I just make a, maybe not. So go here and make a new cylinder. We're going to go to 16 sides, and I'll do one cap segment just to make it easy. Okay, so as you can see, the pivot point's at the bottom of the object. So I'm going to hit S to turn on my snaps. I'm going to hit F4 to turn on my wireframe just so I can see where I'm going here. And I'm going to drag this up here. And I want it to snap to the top, which is kind of, there we go. And I want it lined up with the center. Turn off my snaps. And then I'm just going to drop the radius. Let's kill the height as well. I don't need it to be that tall. So decide how big we want this circle to be. So something like that. Okay. So back to this object here. I'm going to go to border. And what I'm going to do is actually scale this back out. Scale it out. And then hold on shift and scale in. Let's try that. Okay. So this, go to edge mode. This line here, well, we're going to have to deselect everything except this. Just going to move this back to here. And I'm going to do the inner one. I'm going to snap the inner one. So let's start here. Turn on my S for snapping and snap to there, there. So you can see where we're going with this. Whoa, now. Sometimes you got to get a different view on. So I'm just going to do this one first just to. Come on. There we go. There. Now, obviously, we got a lot of cleanup to do here, but we'll get there. And there's so many points, it's very hard to get things to snap sometimes. And come on, come on, come on. There we go. Come on. There we go. What is it snapping at behind the camera? So weird. There. Okay. Now, these, turn off my snapping. And let's adjust this. Well, got to do it in the right tool. And we're just going to scale this in here just to make this a little cleaner. I always want to have somewhat neat geometry. I mean, don't kill yourself with it, but try to make it a little bit neat. Okay. I don't know. Something like that. It's a little neater. Okay, so I'm going to move this. I'm just going to hide this. So just right click on it, hide selection. Oh, look, I missed one. Undo that. Let's go underneath if we can get in there. Come on. There we go. Vertex. Select that. Turn on snapping, and we're going to snap it there. Okay. Select that and hide it. So we'll go to border, select this, turn off my snapping, get your scale tool, hold down shift. We're going to scale in a little bit just to create a rim, a thin line of polygons here. Okay. I tend to always do that every time I cut a hole in something. I tend to always have a rim of polygons around the hole. It just makes for easier chamfering and so on. Then get your move tool and just pull this down like that, and then double click. So get edge mode, double click this, and let's do a quick chamfer of one segment, something like that, maybe 2 segments. Okay, right there. So now we got a perfectly round hole. If you want to see that it's round, you can put a Turbosmooth on there. Isoline, 2 iterations. Turn off my wireframe with F4. You can see we got a perfectly round hole. Okay, and then we can actually use that cylinder that we used to make the hole. We can actually use it to plug the hole like that. Okay, so we'll do that. So where were we? So now we have that. And let's take off my Turbosmooth here. So I'm going to go back to polygon here, and I'm going to delete this half. Oops. All right. So now we would probably, since I'm not going to go back and do anything with any of these here, we can just right click and go to collapse all. And it's going to give you a warning. Just say yes. So now we're down to a single edit poly, and we can go from here. Okay. What I might do here is this. As you can see, this polygon is not a very nice polygon. It's because this is way over here. I'm just going to take this and just slide this over so we're not being pulled as far. And maybe this one, just slide this over here. Let's try to get that geo to follow logically here. Other thing I could do is just maybe, well, if I do a cut from here to here, then I can swift loop here and then just get my snapping and just line it up with that, and then continue to cut here to here, and then swift loop here, and then get my cut tool and cut from there to there. Okay, just to give it a little bit more resolution in there in some of these areas. So then these two, obviously there's a triangle here, so we can just target weld that to there, and that'll work a little bit better. Just move these out a little bit. And actually, instead of having this curve around to here, what I'm going to do is cut it this way and down, and then maybe cut this way and then down to here. The reason that I do this is because I want this corner to stay pretty sharp. So now I can get rid of this edge, and that should hold that corner when I smooth it a little bit better. So if I want, I can actually select all these points here and scale them straight, and then maybe even move them up a little bit. Okay. Something like that. Eventually we may have to cut something in and through here. So we'll deal with that later. Okay, so if we put the symmetry back on, and it was Y and flip. Okay, this is what we're dealing with here. And if I go to vertex mode, I can just pull this here a little bit. All right, so that's what we have right now. And if we go to vertex, this one is actually something like that. So this, now let me see the height. So you can see height wise we're not even here. So what I'm going to do is select this, this, and the light itself. Get my move tool, and I'm going to move this down until we're more or less even. Okay, so I may have to lift it. So I'm going to deselect the light. Oh, you know what I didn't do? Anyway, we'll fix that later. Might have to pull this up a little bit. So what I forgot to do is to include these two with the light. So quick way to do that is just get my align tool, click on this, and I need to tell it to align pivot point to pivot point, but I just want to do it on the Z position. So it's just going to lower it down and hit OK. There we go. Okay. So now that we've sort of evened this out, you can see that so we can again raise this up. I guess it's not really set in stone how high that it has to be. And what I'm going to do, if I'm happy with the positioning of that, which I think I am, I'm going to select the polygons of this here, or even element, no, polygons, and I'm going to delete all of that. Oh, actually no, just on the one. There we go. And let's delete that. And then later on I'll cap that off. Okay, so we need to continue here. Save our work. And in the next video, we will keep going. So thanks for watching. Subscribe, please. Give us a like. And thanks for watching.